The servants of the Emperor wield influence and power enough to sunder entire star systems at their discretion, combating the greatest threats to their master's reign, whether clad in gold, silver, or black. These exemplars of humanity's indomitable spirit, made manifest, fight both in the light and shadows to enact his will. For today, we shall elucidate the elite vanguard of the Master of Mankind, tasked with maintaining order throughout the stars by any means necessary. The clandestine warriors of the Throne World, the Talons of the Emperor.
These men are my bodyguards. Their lives forfeit to the guarantee of my physical safety. Of their loyalty to me, there shall be no question or doubt. I, and I alone, shall have the authority to stand in judgment over them. No other commander shall they have in battle, nor in service. None shall bar them from me, and none shall hamper or stall their mission. So it is decreed.
The Imperium of Man requires untold billions to survive the bleakness of the galaxy. His angels, the Astra Militarum, and hundreds of administrative organizations enable the function of the waning yet glorious empire. Yet among all the duties of the protectors of humanity, one above all is paramount for the continued glory of mankind. For today, we shall elucidate the guardians of the Emperor and champions of his will, the stalwart wardens of the Golden Throne, the Adeptus Custodes. During the 29th millennium, humanity had suffered greatly following the downfall of the Age of Strife. Referred to by the societies of Old Earth simply as Old Night, mankind had ascended to heights of paradisal technological advancement and civil liberties, allowing for its expanse across the stars. Yet the hubris of advancement and prosperity did blind the peoples of the age of technology and hearken a spiral into depravity and degeneration. Humanity's use of abominable intelligences had created machine beings known as Men of Iron, which did betray their creators. Billions perished as the vast empire of man fell to ruin and disrepair, until its cradle of origin, Old Earth, became isolated from its crumbling fiefdoms. Further excised from the galaxy with the fall of the Eldari and the cruel birth of the being known as Slaanesh, its birth scream conjured vast warp storms such as the Eye of Terror. The lost empire of mankind, having already endured 5 millennia of toil, by the 27th millennium, Old Earth had been ravaged by war for over 2,000 years. With no authority to command the fragments of a tattered species, one man would rise to claim dominion over the anarchic Throne World. A being known only as the Emperor by imperial records had lived in the shadows throughout humanity's vast history, observing and witnessing the species' greatest glories and failures. Unwilling to allow for mankind's extinction, the being known by its perpetual kin as Neoth created armies to combat the techno-barbarian rabble of Old Earth. A master of the sciences, the Emperor created warriors of stature and martial prowess capable of overthrowing the many butcher monarchs of terror, such as the Unspeakable King and the Seven Neverborn. Molding 10,000 warriors handcrafted by his genius, the Emperor raised his Legio Custodes to stand as both emissaries of his glory and executioners of his will. The true firstborn sons of the Master of Mankind, the fledgling 10,000 were drawn from sons of conquered Terran warlords and promising scions of the Emperor's grand vision. Dredging techniques and methods from the dark age of technology to create such demigods of war, none save the Primarchs of the Imperium would exceed their skill nor capabilities. Commanding the vast Thunder Warrior Legion during the closing years of the Wars of Unification, though warriors beyond peer, the Legio Custodes could not wage the many battles to come due to their intense labors to create. Crushing each and every tyrant and despot of Old Earth, the Master of Mankind looked upon his proud sons with pride, yet required warriors of more expendable nature and vast deployments to achieve his ambitions. Commanding the custodians to cull the Thunder Warriors from the Emperor's armies, such barbaric and blunt tools would be ill-fitting avatars for his future plans. A new breed of warriors, the Legiones Astartes, were more noble in bearing, and though smaller in stature and raw strength, bore greater utility in assembled ranks. Marching alongside the Adeptus Custodes in their purge of the Thunder Legions, the gold-clad warriors of the Emperor had earned their place as his guardians and honor guard as the Unification Wars concluded during 712.M30. For their place was at the Emperor's side as the Master of Mankind assumed his rightful place as humanity's ruler. For each custodian wrought by the genecraft of the Emperor, many souls would perish in their making. These warriors were not soldiers. Their duty was to defend the monarch of humanity, and as such, they were ill-made to conduct grand-scale wars. The Astartes, though inferior in martial prowess, fought cohesively in squads and battle lines, for the custodians were never designed to be line infantry, and as such, fought alone. Achieving the limit of their amassed strength during the midpoint of the Great Crusade, only on one occasion would a force of 1,000 of their number be deployed to face the Imperium's enemies. Fighting the Orc warlord, Gargul Blackfang, alongside the reclaimed Primarchs Horus Lupercal, Rogel Dawn, and Mortarion, the might of the Custodians spearheaded by the Emperor was the single mightiest contingent ever deployed and would never be seen again. Said to have slain 100,000 orcs within minutes following the warlord's decapitation by the Emperor, only 3 custodians would fall in battle. Engraving their names upon his armor, the Master of Mankind's veneration for his firstborn was equaled only by his Primarch sons. The Lord of Lightning's genetic materials, said to be the foundation of his Guardian's genetic code, these Guardians bore not only unparalleled strength, but keen minds of mental fortitude and supreme intelligence. Scholars and philosophers, clad in ornate Baroque armor, these priceless paragons would each be a great loss to humanity should they perish in battle. Functionally immortal, many within the Imperium deemed the Custodians to be unkillable, for what could hope to harm the Emperor's mightiest defenders. Yet during the War of the Horus Heresy, the 10,000 would not evade the scars of war. The Imperial Webway, a project to which the Emperor toiled to liberate humanity from its reliance on traversal through the warp, would be irreparably sundered by the Primarch of the Thousand Suns, Magnus the Red. His good intentions in warning his father of the impending betrayal of his favored son, regardless damning humanity to forever be victim to the machinations of the Immaterium and its fell pantheon. Rupturing a tear within the Webway, billions of demonic entities spilled forth within proximity of the Imperial Palace and required a shadow war of untold billions to fend off the tear in real space. Requiring able-bodied men and women to face the malevolent beings laying siege to the Webway, the 10,000 split their number between defending the palace from threats on both the material and immaterial plane. As the War Master's rebellion reached Holy Terror, the palace's defenses strained as the guns of traitor scum sought to crush the Loyalists. Soldiers, civilians, Astartes and Custodians perished as the Emperor struggled to contain the War of the Webway from overwhelming the Imperial Palace from within. Yet an opportunity to end the war presented itself, with the War Master of Chaos allowing for the shields of his flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, to fall in order to invite the Emperor into a duel for humanity's soul. Teleporting aboard the Vengeful Spirit, alongside his noble sons Rogel Dawn, Sanguinius, and untold numbers of warriors, the Custodian Guard stood ready to defend their liege from the War Master's talons. Infiltrating the flagship, yet separated from the might of the Primarchs and their legionaries, the Custodes fought their way to the Lupercal's court. The War Master of Chaos fought the Master of Mankind, and despite the best efforts of his guardians, the Emperor incurred a mortal wound. Though Horus Lupercal was atomized from existence by the psychic might of the Emperor, the Master of Mankind's body was broken beyond all hope of restoration. The 10,000 had failed in their duty to defend their liege, and with the Emperor's interment upon the Golden Throne, the custodians tore off their proud red cloaks from their armor, replacing them with deepest black to mark their shame. Watching over their corpse of a monarch as he sat immobile upon his carrion throne, the custodians would remain within the depths of the imperial palace, in somber vigil. Already a rare sight for even the most fortunate servants of the Imperium, the custodians, once locked away within the inner palace, became almost mythic in nature. Renamed as the Adeptus Custodes, their numbers of the former Legio had declined during the Horus Heresy to the blades of traitors and demons alike. The time of rebirth of the 31st millennium, overseen by the newly appointed Lord Commander of the Imperium, Roboute Guilliman, unleashed reprisal against the traitor legions. The Scouring required every able-bodied Astartes to cull the survivors of the Siege of Terra, yet the Auric Mortalis of the Emperor, for the majority, would not join the fray. The Golden Death could not allow for another injury to their patriarch, and as such ensconced themselves close to his wearied frame. Never faltering in their vigil of millennia, the custodians conducted blood games to prevent potential vulnerabilities in their defenses from being exploited. Aiding the wider Imperium only rarely, such as the heresy of High Lord Goj Vandire during the Age of Apostasy, their involvements, such as in this instance, forever changes the fate of the Imperium's future. None know the extent to how many of the assassination attempts to kill the Emperor have been quelled by the custodians. All that bears saying is that none have come close to succeeding. The right hand of the Master of Mankind, these proud yet humble demigods would prolong the Master of the Imperium's safety for 10 millennia. Yet during the days of the Dark Imperium, wherein all hope for salvation seemed impossible, a beacon of hope would herald a new era for humanity. Cadia had fallen with the conclusion of Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade, yet after millennia of stasis, the avenging son of the Emperor returned. Roboute Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, had been revived within Macragge's Fortress of Hera, and through great tenacity, ventured to Holy Terra. As the custodians staved off demonic invasion of Holy Terra during the Battle of Lion's Gate, the gloried paragons of the Emperor once more took to the field outside the palace's walls. Reminding the Imperium of their insurmountable might, the custodians could no longer shy away from the wars spanning the length and breadth of the Void. With Guilliman's arrival, the Second Battle of Terra proved one thing above all: the forces of Chaos were desperate to delay the resurgence of the Imperium. Meeting with the Emperor for counsel, the Avenging Son, now bequeathed with the Master of Mankind's legendary flaming sword, began his great work of rebuilding the fallen Imperium. Blessed with righteous purpose by his father's own decree, Guilliman saw to the reclamation of a beleaguered galaxy and would not allow the custodians to wallow in their ignominy. The only soul to be permitted to request aid from their ranks with authorization of the Emperor, Roboute Guilliman commanded the Golden Host to cast down their capes of black and once more proudly bear their venerated crimson. After 10,000 years of mourning, a new age dawned for the Custodian Guard as they once again embarked across the stars. Tasked with shepherding Primara Space Marine reinforcements to the various successor chapters of the Adeptus Astartes and joining the Avenging Son's crusade to combat the blight of chaos. Allowing for 300 custodians to remain by the Emperor's side, with exception to these venerated companions, the remainder of the restored 10,000 root out the greatest threats to humanity with targeted assaults of unremitting fury. Under the banner of the Imperial Regent, the Era Indomitus heralded many great strides for humanity, and with the golden symbols of the Emperor at its vanguard, the forces of evil trembled. Each custodian lost in battle, tolling the bell of lost souls to mark the loss of such a hero, it has chimed more in recent years than ever before. Though unconventional and not deemed strictly as a standing army, The Adeptus Custodes projects a deeply complicated structure to outsiders, whilst in reality remaining flexible in its organizational structure. Ageless and unchanging as stone, the Warriors of the Golden Death are difficult to attribute rank or seniority, their titles derived from ancient Terran myths of gods and kings, further complicating their true ranks. A law unto themselves, for only the Master of Mankind himself may command them. Not even the Inquisition can meddle in the affairs of the so-called Talons of the Emperor. Commanded solely by their Captain General, for such a remarkably vast collection of the finest warriors of the Imperium, their command hierarchy is relatively small. Aided by 2 tribunes under his command, a war council of 10 veterans form the Custodian Tribunate, which consults their Captain General on war policy. The members of the Tribunate rotate often to allow for varied ideas and perspective. Each Tribunate member must serve within the Council for a minimum of 10 solar years, and are only permitted membership should they have earned 10 honor names, 1 in battle. Next is the Custodian Prefectorate, which comprises of off-duty veterans of the Order, whilst active combatant shield captains fulfill their role as deployment commanders. Regarded with titles such as Supreme Castellans, Master Guardians, and Aquila Commanders, the prefects and shield captains oversee the war zones waged by the Custodes. As members of the Adeptus Terra, regardless of their membership as a governing body, the Custodes prefer to abstain from politics when possible. Their headquarters within the Tower of Hegemon of the Imperial Palace, the elite companions charged with the protection of the Emperor remain vigilant on patrol and stationary for years without end. The junior ranks of such champions, known as Sodalities, the responsibilities and duties of such warriors are varied, yet typically equal in seniority to one another. Whether assigned to Rapid Strike Virtus Praetors or hulking Alaris assault squads, all are respected by their peers for their individual gifts and virtues. Forming shield companies, which vary in size, the shield captains handpick the warriors to create anything from small squads of champions to battalions, should they be required, though typically such companies maximize at 40 custodians. Should a war zone require even greater firepower, shield hosts combine multiple companies led by an appointed captain commander and a conclave of his peer shield captains. On rare occasions comprised of hundreds of custodians, shield hosts are among the largest and most deadly standing armies the Imperium can bring to bear, which can potentially conquer entire star systems. Assembled only should no other military arm of the Imperium be capable of victory, it is a rare sight indeed to gaze upon such ornate golden warriors in such numbers. Each custodian belongs to a caste known as a chamber, which defines their tactical role within their order, such as the Hateron Guard, which are now known as the Companions. Led by their shield captain known as Centurions, handpicked by the Captain General as the quintessentially most important brothers of the Order, the Companions, whilst damned to years of purgatorial service, regardless carry the heaviest burden of any of their kin. Unmoving for years on end, this grueling test of patience with a need for instant readiness for battle cannot allow for a single crack in a companion's mental fortitude. Pragmatically replaced at the cusp of their service being fulfilled, the Captain General must constantly monitor these champions to know the exact moment to assign new inductees. The longest ever vigil, conducted by Astoran Kalos, the Companion of Legend stood unmoving for a Terran century before being relieved of his duty. Usually reassigned to the Aquilan Shield once their service is complete, these honored custodians protect the lives of both proven and divined individuals of great import. The Gilded Guardians of the Emperor's own elite cadre, unparalleled in their ability to protect those valued above all by the Imperium. The Hycanatoi are the military arm of the custodians and bear the iconic Guardian Spears of their order. Executioners of the Emperor's will, their offensive contingents of Custodian Guard and Defensive Sentinel Guard encompass the typical visage of the Auric Mortalis. The Pharanatoi specialize as heavy shock troopers, and as such are not suited to siege warfare or attrition. Despite these factors, the Pharanatoi's Terminator armor-clad warriors wield Eldrithic disintegration weapons created during the Dark Age of technology. The Cataphractoi served during the time of the Legio and acted primarily as scouts and reconnaissance units as the Emperor embarked upon the battlefields of the Great Crusade. The Epheiroi conducted covert operations and counter-surveillance during the Great Crusade. Their probing of their own defense lines for signs of weakness proved invaluable during their conquest of the stars. Known to assassinate key targets during battle, their duties in deposing key targets would often be misattributed to the Officio Assassinorum due to their efficiency in concealing their involvement. The Moritoi, or Honored Dead Who Walked, are those of the Custodes who are interred within dreadnoughts. Outfitted with the unique Achilles pattern variant of the Contemptor dreadnought chassis, the technologies used to construct such war machines exceed all capabilities of the Angels of Death models. The Dankanatoi, founded during the final days of the Horus Heresy, were tasked with hunting traitor elements within the War Master's hosts and continued to covertly strike high-valued targets throughout the Scouring and beyond. And for those rare few who begin to show signs of weariness or reduced capabilities, they shall find new purpose as the Eyes of the Emperor. Though functionally immortal beings, even a custodian slows with the ravages of time, and as such these warriors are unfit to protect the Emperor at nothing less than peak performance. Even a tenth of a second is a substantial lapse, yet these warriors beyond reproach resolve to take the fight to the enemies of the Emperor, far from his palace's walls. Surrendering his armor and weapons to the Hall of Armaments, such a custodian veteran shall embark upon the void wearing simple hooded black robes and travel to the most far-flung and backwater worlds. Observing the lawless expanses of the galaxy for dark portents of impending threats to the Imperium, the exiled Firstborn cultivate information networks and quell rebellions before they can burgeon. Should they witness a threat capable of reaching Holy Terror, they shall inform the Captain General, who in turn shall launch a preemptive strike to pacify any potential dangers. Regardless of their independent nature, the Custodian Guard requires senior ranks of otherworldly martial skill and military genius to effectively command them. The Captain General, standing above all as not only the master of the Auric Mortalis, but a High Lord of Terror in his own right, not even the Adeptus Astartes chapter masters can challenge the authority of the Master of the Golden Death. Respected above all by his junior ranks, 17 mighty souls have been attributed the title during the Custodian's history. Custodian tribunes hearken from the era of the Great Crusade, and though defunct as a promotable role, 2 souls have retained such an esteemed title. The personal advisors to the Emperor himself, one served within the Companions of the Sanctum Imperialis, whilst the other, known as the Tribune Ostratarchus, wages wars across the Sea of Stars. The honorific title of Captain Commander is the next most senior rank of the Custodians, for these ascended shield captains command each shield host after millennia of demonstrably brilliant leadership. Shield captains lead each shield company, squad, and sodality, and bear little noticeable difference in seniority when compared to one another. Known by a variety of titles such as Lictors, Proconsuls, Aquila Commanders, and Supreme Castellans, only the most veteran of these shield captains is honored with the title Prefect. Though not a commanding officer, Blade Champions are among the most skilled fighters of the Custodians, and for their insurmountable martial prowess, have their names etched onto the Tome Eternal within the Emperor's throne room. Wardens are veterans of the Order, and must serve a minimum of 5 Terran centuries before achieving such a rank. Carrying their mighty Castellan axes in battle, each warden swears an oath to the Emperor after a century of contemplation atop the Gallo Tower of the Imperial Palace. The Vexillus Praetors bear the standards crafted after 100 years within the Tower Aquilane, marching into battle, inspiring their peers who fight under their charge. Each standard kept within the Auric Eyrie within stasis podia until being carried into battle. The standards are blessed by Ministorum priests and embody the Emperor's divine soul. Alara's Terminators, though massive in scale, are not encumbered by their bulk, and stride across the battlefield unscathed by heavy artillery, such as macro cannon blasts. Uniquely armed with ballistic grenade launchers, these unparalleled heavy infantry scatter their number and lay waste to entire battalions alone, with portable, yet devastating firepower. The Aquilon Terminators of legend bear the brunt of the fiercest of enemy opposition, when deployed to designated Zone Mortalis war zones of unremitting violence. The golden-clad behemoths unleash the wrath of the Emperor upon the wicked. The Sentinel Guard form defensive lines and protect Imperial emissaries from harm. Typically armed with Praesidium shields to form shield walls of unbreakable durability, the Sentinel Guard exceed even the Imperial Fist Astartes' expertise in defensive fortification, though scant records exist of their deployment during the 41st millennium. The Virtus Praetors strike alike to lightning, wielding the enormous Inceptor Lancers, as these rapid attack warriors act as scouts of the Custodians. Launching into battle using their Dawn Eagle jet bikes, their precise maneuvers and expertise as marksmen allow for crippling targeted strikes. The Agamatus squadrons once fought during the Great Crusade atop Gear Falcon patterned jet bikes, allowing for their heavily armored ranks to lunge into the heart of battle. Firing Iliasta's bolt cannons from their steeds, their reputation to suppress enemy positions and cause mayhem behind enemy lines endures to this day. The Pallas Gravatax squadrons utilize Pallas Gravatax, first constructed by the renowned Mechanicus genius, Arcan Land. The equivalent to an Astartes landspeeder in operation, its ability to levitate from the ground and strike with increased speed sets it leagues apart from its more mundane comparison. The Sagittarium Guard specialize in long-range combat. Their time spent upon the walls of the Imperial Palace, monitoring suspicious activities, potential covert enemy movements, and even speech patterns from afar, have cultivated a legacy of incredible scrutiny for detail. Anticipating descent and enemy stealth operations before they have been put into motion, the hawk-eyed sentries quell disorder before it has time to fester. The Venatari squads are the airborne contingent of the Custodes, and descend from the heavens using their jump packs, the Auramite Pinions. Nicknamed as the Emperor's Hunting Eagles, these Sky Warriors are veterans of the blood games of the Order and can pinpoint weaknesses in enemy lines with ease and best exploit them with surprise attacks. With such widespread specialists within the ranks of the Custodian Guard, several hosts have been entrenched as permanent positions. Tasked with duties of immeasurable value to the Imperium, should a single host fail in its duty, untold misery would befall all of humanity. The Shadow Keepers guard the terrible archaeotech and eldritch horrors of Old Night, sealed deep beneath the Imperial Palace. Wardens of the so-called Dark Cells, should a single artifact escape its imprisonment, the very survival of the human race could be threatened. Their vigil eternal, it is no exaggeration to state that the 100 custodians guarding the terrors of the Age of Strife are responsible for containing among the greatest calamities of existence. The very air filled with corruption, though no sound nor sight escapes the vaults of the Dark Cells, a mortal man would quickly succumb to madness in their presence. Armed with the single most potent weapons of their order, should anything escape containment, these dour warriors require only the most devastating arsenal to combat such catastrophic creations. Unfortunately, with the birth of the Cicatrix Maledictum and its rending of the galaxy in twain, several horrors of the Dark Cells have suddenly been spirited from their jails, sending a portion of their might to hunt down such abominations let loose upon the void. The Shadowkeepers slaughter any who would impede their righteous mission to once more seal their charges. Their shield captain, known as the Lock Warden, this stern and relentless jailer oversees the operation of the host and toils endlessly to protect humanity from the mistakes of its dark past. The Aquilon Shield serve as bodyguards of those of the Imperium, destined to enable its survival. War heroes, statesmen, inquisitors, spiritual leaders, and even potent psychers can tip the scale of fate of entire star systems should their innate talents and deeds be made in the name of the Emperor. And so it is that the Gilded Guardians appear from thin air at the moment of the potential death of such portentous souls, refusing to allow the enemies of humanity to claim a future saint or distinguished servant. Forewarned by the palace's doomscryers, warning of disaster should such souls perish, the Aquilon Shields stand at the side of such invaluable individuals in order to accrue spiritual and martial assets for the Imperium. For it is an honor beyond measure for a subject of the Imperium to even glimpse a custodian in their lifetime, let alone be protected by the personal honor guard of the Master of Mankind himself. The Dread Host instill fear within the hearts of the wicked, for to incur their wrath is an act of immeasurable malice. Numbering in the hundreds, these custodians traverse the stars within the warships, the Moirades, and act as instruments of the Emperor's wrath. Conducting secret wars across the known galaxy to destroy the greatest known threats to the Imperium, their overwhelming combined might can sunder entire renegade Space Marine chapters, rebellious worlds, or chaos warbands. Rarely deploying all three of their host warships to a single campaign, regardless of the might they dispatch, none have ever survived their onslaughts. Leaving no evidence of their involvement with the conclusion of their slaughter, these golden ghosts would terrify all living heretics within the void were they to know of their existence. The Solar Watch defend the space lanes and orbital fortresses of the Sol system and are regarded as the Castellans of the Blessed Worlds. Guarding the Halo Belt from invasion forces intending to harm the Throne World, the Solar Watch intercepts threats before the need of the billions of weapons platforms behind their lines are required to repel invaders. Almost entirely mechanized with naval craft and Land Raider units, the Solar Watch respond to threats such as demon incursions and Xenos raids swiftly and with overwhelming firepower. Launching Talon sorties upon threats within the outskirts of the Sol system, under orders from their Captain General, the Castellans of the Blessed Worlds cull looming threats before they have a chance to burgeon. And finally, the Emissaries Imperatus serve as the messengers of the Master of Mankind. As heralds of the Golden Throne, their word personally passed down from the Emperor himself is beyond reproach. Receiving their commands from their liege during meditation, these valiant souls are attuned to the Emperor's guiding hand and convene their ranks to discuss and collaborate their interpretations of his will. Bequeathed with ancient and powerful artifacts to aid in their ventures to distant war zones and locations of import, the Emissaries Imperatus recover ancient archaeotech, divert crusades to more optimal targets, and intercept mounting threats across the void. Their deployments increasing with the return of the Avenging Sun, their duty to deliver Primaris reinforcements to beleaguered Space Marine chapters is of paramount import. The intentions of such peculiar new breeds of warriors earning skepticism from several Astartes chapters, the presence of a custodian proves their sanction by the Emperor. For one does not decline a gift from the Master of Mankind, nor his most cherished, firstborn sons. The armaments of the Golden Host are ancient beyond measure and the absolute pinnacle of the Imperium's craft. Each panoply of war donned by the Custodes is fashioned from invaluable auramite alloy, suited to protect the Emperor's most precious guardians. Uniquely crafted to each custodian's form, the sophisticated suite of proximity sensors, refraction field generators, and redundancy systems, only the armor of the Primarchs can match their durability. The Aquilon pattern Terminator suits, filled with neurofiber uplinks implemented personally by the Emperor's own ingenuity. Should the Custodes require even more armor, they shall carry Praesidium storm shields forged of layered ceramite or smaller Tarsus bucklers. Carrying Magisterium Vexilla standards into battle, imbued with the authority of the Master of Mankind, its presence instills zeal and fervor within the beleaguered, whilst also containing Vox relays and subsonic inducers within their construction. Armed with the deadliest weapons of any standing military, the weapons of the Custodians are iconic for their regal designs. Foremost is the Guardian Spear, an elegant weapon incorporating both a power blade and bolt gun. Seen by many as the badge of office of the Guardians of the Emperor, its versatility as both a melee and ranged weapon is astonishing in the hands of a custodian. The most righteous of their design, the Paragon Spears, wielded only by the most noble shield captains and tribunes of the Order, are rare beyond measure. Custodian Wardens wield enormous, heavy-bladed Castellan axes, capable of cleaving through the toughest armor and able to fire volleys of bolt rounds from its haft. Sentinel blades, fitted with disruption field generators, are a far more brutal method of war than the Guardian Spear, its warblade fitted with a double-barreled bolter to unleash hails of short-range firepower. Other power weapons such as Solarite gauntlets, Interruptor lances, Venatari lances, and Volt swords also exist, though do not see widespread use within the Custodes. Also carrying Lastrum-patterned storm bolters and bolt cannons, loaded with hand-manufactured heliothermic warheads, a single burst from such weapons can obliterate any target they impact. Many Custodians also carry Misericordia or Blades of Mercy in battle, which though predominantly ceremonial, can be used to grant the Emperor's peace to any combatant too wounded to survive battle. Their vehicle pools supplied with unique Coronis grav carriers, Caladius grav tanks, Pallas grav attack vehicles, Orion assault dropships, Dawn Eagle and Gear Falcon jet bikes. These armored vehicles are the pinnacle of technological sophistication and are fitting steeds of the Emperor's Knights. Their venerable wounded kindred marching into battle within Achilles, Galatas and Telamon patterned dreadnoughts. The overwhelming firepower of such machines of war, even alone, are enough to tip the scales of battle in the Imperium's favor. Due to their highly independent nature, the heraldry of each Custodian varies greatly in fine details. Their armor crafted with no heed taken to the cost in resources, nor extensive amount of artificers needed. A single suit's worth of Auramite is worth a planet's ransom in cost. Each weapon made by the toil of entire subcults of Mechanicus clades and artisans, none among any souls of the Imperium bear armaments of such personalized and prestigious glory. The artisan barons of clans such as Halbrimnir and Gestaxtis, renowned for their artistry and craftsmanship, their bloodlines dwelling within the gilded towers of Holy Terror, spend every moment of their lives maintaining such relics of the Custodians. Engraving their many names within the plating of their armor, each Custodian earns such names through glorious deeds in battle and service to the Emperor. The most names accrued by any of the Golden Host achieved by their first Captain General, Constantin Valdor, who attained 932 during his tenure. The pauldrons of each suit of armor bear the Imperial Aquila, signifying their duty to enact the Emperor's will with their adoption of his sigil. The gold of their Auramite, set with precious flawless gemstones, each shield company share the same color of gemstones, and will have them carefully replaced should they be redeployed to another company. Their left pauldrons also distinguishing the shield company and host to which they belong. Such color identifiers typically match their tabards and any decorative robes they may wear. Tinting their naturally golden Auramite to different shades at the molecular level, the costly process allows for a permanent means to show their adherence to their chamber creeds. Their martially capable mortal armory thralls, following their masters into battle, they shall carry extra munitions and armor sealant should it be needed. Drilled to quickly reload spent Guardian spears and other armaments once discarded by each Custodian, strong mortals are required to heft such weapons and return them to the grasp of their deadly lords. Though diminished from their original stature of 10,000 Custodians following the War of the Horus Heresy, over 10 millennia their numbers have once again swelled. Crafted from the Emperor's own genetic materials, though the process of the creation of the Astartes is known, much fewer details exist for the firstborn sons of the Master of Mankind. Such secrets closely guarded to prevent their misuse by heretic madmen, though the Custodians' endurance, strength and constitution exceeds that of the Angels of Death, their adaptability is inferior. Sterile, alike to their Astartes kin, the Custodians are bred only for a singular purpose, the defense of their master, and as such were never intended to fight as collaborative warriors. Akin more like to lions than a pack of wolves such as the Space Marines, their process of creation is so taxing not only on the subject, but resources brought to bear, it would never be feasible to create their numbers in vast quantities. Taken before adolescence, these handcrafted wardens of the Emperor are inducted younger than the Astartes and are not implanted with gene seed organs. More subtle in their transformation, utilizing alchemistry rather than surgeries, their bodies are transformed at the cellular level, and at the peak of their slow transformation, once fully matured, effectively stave off further signs of aging. The crudity of accelerated muscle growth derived from grafted implants bereft from their flesh, the transforming molecular encoding of the Adeptus Custodes are tailored specifically to each individual's genes. Protected from psychic and null powers due to their godlike genetic heritage, their alliance made alongside the Sisters of Silence has proven to be exceptionally effective when combating the most dire threats of the Void. Immune to the allure of the warp, none within the ranks of the Custodes bear any hint of talent for the arts of the Librarius, for such attributes have proven to be easy to exploit. Created solely by the mind and genius of the Emperor, none truly know the extent to how these demigods are forged, and by virtue of the nature of their creation, are precious beyond all measure to the master of mankind. They were to be his companions, his finest sons, those he would embark across the stars with, and share his peerless mind when all others would quake in his mere presence. Guardians of his most precious secrets, stalwart ambassadors of his grand vision, and executors of his will, yet now the master of mankind sat immobile and silent upon his carrion throne. His most venerated sons had endured 10 millennia of shame for their failure. Practicing their martial katas to hone and perfect their skill, within the Colossia Auris of the Imperial Palace, many of their number train without pause until they have proven themselves capable of mastering such stances and techniques. Practicing the katas of Behemor, Saiestus, Conservi, Dakatarai, Decapitas, Goliath, Captaris, Rendax, Salvus, and Vanquis, only the elite order of the Blade Champions master the forms of Hurricanus and Victus. Also honing the hundreds of politic, oratorial, and philosophic katas to best serve the Imperium as statesmen, the Adeptus Custodes stand ready as not only warriors, but also representatives of the Emperor's intent. For whilst war rages across the galaxy, and threats on all fronts enclose around the bastion of humanity, its gold-clad champions maintain their vigil of the Golden Throne. Yet after millennia of self-imposed contrition, their blades once more carve the cancer of heresy from the stars, and they shall not want for enemies of the Imperium to bestow the Emperor's wrath and judgment.
Ours is the duty absolute. Ours is the vigil that must never end. Ours is the timeless honor, the willing sacrifice, the penitence enduring. We stand a watch that will never be relieved, and we stand it gladly, out of adoration for he who gave us life, and whose life we must, in turn, preserve. We will never earn absolution, for we do not deserve it. But those who believe that would give us pause are fools.
We are mute, but not without power. We are silent, but not without resolve. We are untouchable, but not without courage. We are sisters, and have but one father. We are seekers, and we shall find our prey. We are warriors, and woe to those we oppose. The Emperor's mark is on our brow. All who deal with the warp must beware. His judgment and vengeance is ours to deliver.
The Imperium of Man requires myriad organizations to maintain order throughout a war-ravaged galaxy. Dangers such as the mutant, the alien, and the heretic, all demanding bespoke creeds to stem their threats posed to humanity's domains. The rampant outbreaks of witches and sorcerers, arguably the most dangerous of all. Yet mankind can never sever ties to the warp due to its reliance on its elements to travel the stars, harness its martial might, and feed its carrion emperor. Yet to harvest its power, an order of pariahs embark upon the void to gather such psychic souls. For today, we shall elucidate the military branch of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica, armed with abilities to thwart all influence made by the Psyker. The Null Maidens of the Emperor, the Sisters of Silence. During the era of the Great Crusade, the Master of Mankind ventured past the boundaries of the Sol system to reunite the disparate fragments of humanity, the remnants of long-dead species and forgotten nightmares of old night, demanding a variety of countermeasures to reclaim the stars. His infamous foe of the Unification Wars, the Unspeakable King, rumored to be the impetus of the origins of the Null Maidens during the Age of Strife. Records of Hollow Ones, who shared his warp-dampening powers, fought in the Tyrant's name, until pledging fealty to the Master of Mankind. Though the ill-fated Thunder Legion fought at the vanguard of the Emperor's conquest, his custodian guard rarely strayed from his side, their might sundering the techno-barbarians of Terra before their glorious leader silenced the crack of thunder with aid from a new breed of dour angels. Nevertheless, the Golden Host, as was intended by their design, bore no mutations within their bloodline. Their lack of psychic powers a glaring weakness, no matter their unmatchable skill with blade and bolter, as they stood resolute, guarding the Master of Mankind. Losses incurred by martial threats proving minimal during the Unification Wars, far greater were casualties wrought by sorcerers and warp possession. The raw might of the Emperor's armies, unable to effectively combat such foes, without the Master of Mankind or his Sigillites' personal intervention. Ordering the tech adepts of Mars to construct the League of Black Ships to embark upon the void of space, the fledgling paramilitary organization heed the commands of a cabal of Primaris-level psychers of the nascent Scholastica Psychana. Originally known as the Departamento Investigatis, this mysterious order, given authority by the Eternal Monarch, hunted renegade psychers whilst capturing those with potential to benefit the Imperium. The Astra Telepathica, tasked with facilitating communication for a galaxy-spanning empire, due to the intense nature of their work and threats posed by the Immaterium, a steady tide of new recruits were required to replenish their losses. Apprehending wayward mutants and purging those too far gone to be redeemed, any and all methods would be used to carry out their duty. The possibility of uprisings, demonic possession, and rampant outbursts of warp energies, too fatal to be handled gently. The initial records of the Departamento, citing massive losses made to the Imperium's war effort, the organization's greatest failings would coalesce during the cataclysm of Pentacaneus. The impoverished hive world, solar weeks distance from the throne world, tithing portions of its overpopulated masses of billions, the frontier outpost descended into infighting as vice and corruption took root. A hive cult known as the Final Banquet, mobilizing within the slum sector of Distempora, under the guidance of their Holy Family, rumors of miracles began to convince the populace of their divine authority. The League of Black Ships descended upon Distempora in search of their leader, the resultant bloodshed caused by the Departamento Investigatis so violent that none know the losses incurred, nor the cause of the means to which their gun cutters and crew were lost. Declaring a state of emergency upon Pentacaneus, madness spread among the populace, its imperial governor slain by his own bodyguards as the influence of the Immaterium held sway over the planet. Captain Gigan Diantes, master of the Black Ship's fleet, though petitioning aid from the 6th Legion, the Space Wolves knew their arrival would not be swift enough, and so resorted to desperate measures to contain the spread of chaos. Deploying the so-called Daughters of the Crow, drawn from the nameless feral world designated 913 of the Segmentum Solar, this auxiliary regiment, which had caused infighting between their peers, proved effective at restoring order. Regarded by the subjects of the Imperium as untouchables, these rare few, cursed with the genetic mutation known as the pariah gene, bore no connection to the warp, All efforts to identify such an anachronistic gene proving fruitless, as untold Imperial archaeotechnologists and Mechanicus biologists failed to ascertain its root cause. The Master of Mankind declared that all efforts to investigate cease, as his own insights failed to reproduce such a phenomena. Losing not a single soldier to the psychic contamination, Captain Deantes, as a scholar of the Scholastica Psychana, knew without a shadow of a doubt that such warriors bore disproportionate numbers of soldiers with the pariah gene. Suddenly suffocating the will of their enemies from them, the Daughters of the Crow severed the miasma controlling the populace until the rout arrived in system and deployed onto the surface. More than 1 billion souls perished by the guns of the Space Wolves, as more than half the surface of Pentaconeus burned, and while many cite this instance as happenstance, more skeptical scholars believed that the blood spilt by the Daughters of the Crow was by no means caused by coincidence. Arguing such a battle to be orchestrated by the Master of Mankind himself, as a means to field test such warriors at the cost of billions of lives. Inevitably, such aspersions cannot be proven with such scant records at hand. Regardless, thus was a new order of knights created in imitation of the Daughters of the Crow. A covert and eerie mirror to the Emperor's gleaming honor guard, which would combat foes beyond even their ken. Their value to the Emperor unquestionably vital as his armies cleansed the galaxy of corruption. Those pariahs unsuitable for the Sisterhood found purpose within the Colexus Temple of the Officio Assassinorum and Legio of the Ordo Sinister, as they devised new methods of harnessing such power. Whether a quirk of evolution, ancient Xenos tampering, or evidence of the fell Dark Age of technology, it mattered not. For while the Legiones Astartes and Custodian Guard proved exceptional warriors, on rare instances, the Daughters of the Abyss would be needed to combat that which they could not. Now organized into an elite force capable of using their genetic flaw for the benefit of the Imperium. 4 decades following the dawn of the Great Crusade, the Sisters of Silence assumed command of the Departamento Investigatis, an all-female order of knights raised in isolation by those unaffected by their gene curse, while the Adeptus Astra Telepathica procured new aspirants to burgeon their number. Each year, new sisters swore their vow of silence. Records of the planet designated 913, redacted from the Cartographica Imperialis. To this day, the planet of Pentaconeus remains as a reminder of the fate befalling all renegade psychers who side with the thralls of chaos. Retaining a standing battalion of sisters to fight by his side, the Master of Mankind, though a psyker in nature, dwarfed the powers of such blanks as the single most powerful conduit of the Immaterium. Perceiving the Master of Mankind as little more than a mortal man, the Null Maidens, though able to pierce the visage cast by their monarch's psychic presence, do not diminish his standing as the undisputed ruler of humanity. Waging constant battles to purge the rogue elements of witches during Imperial compliances, these 1 in a trillion soul-inert beings proved to be among the Emperor's finest companions. Sacrificing all hope for a typical life upon birth, though their presence invites only hatred and mistrust, the Silent Sisters regardless continue to fight in the name of the Imperium with distinction throughout the entirety of the 31st millennium. The dream of the Emperor to relinquish mankind's reliance on superstition and belief, thwarted by the efforts of the War Master of Chaos, Horus Lupercal, each Daughter of the Abyss fell during the conflict of the Horus Heresy, would prove irreplaceable in his fight against chaos. Deployed once again at the side of the Space Wolves Legion during the burning of Prospero and fighting at the front lines of the war within the Webway, even atop the walls of the Imperial Palace, the Null Maidens refused to stand idle as the traitors sought to depose their ruler from his golden throne. Bequeathed absolute autonomy by the High Lords of Terra following the final battle of the Siege of Terra, with the civil war for humanity's soul concluded, those without such an effervescent attribute would stand as among its mightiest guardians. Acceding to the request of Malcador the Hero to gather 1,000 psychically gifted souls each day to temporarily sate the Golden Throne's hunger before his own soul was consumed, the Mistresses of the Black Ships conduct their dour duty to this day to sacrifice millions of human lives to its gilded embrace. Monitoring the Adeptus Astra Telepathica for signs of impending chaos outbreaks, particularly gifted maidens even serve at the side of witch hunters of the Inquisition's Ordo Hereticus. A small subset of veterans of the Great War of Humanity, developing means to suppress their pariah auras, Though some managed to live among outposts and settlements for a time, none could hide their otherness for long. Inevitably cast out from their families, even should they bear children, the curse of their uncanny presence ironically resulting in being burnt at the stake, or damning their own children to a life of similar misfortune. Destined to fight in the shadows, even within the Sol system, the Sisterhood must be careful to plan their gatherings for fear of outbursts of violence within their domains. The presence of the pariah gene, merciless in its ability to turn loved ones, comrades and allies against its bearer, this army of tens of thousands of warrior women preclude themselves from everyday life to protect those they cherish from themselves. Delivering their cargo of sacrifices without hesitation nor failure to meet the Golden Throne's demands, a single Psyker pledged to feed the throne is so valuable that even whole battalions of arbiters who escort them to the Sisters are expendable. The location of each processing world, known only to the navigators of the League of Black Ships, countermeasures such as auto-incinerators are fitted to each cargo hold should their chattel breach the seals of their confines. In time cast out from the Imperium, following the era of the Great Scouring, the High Lords of Terra soon realized their folly with the resurgence of the Orc species during the 32nd millennium. Combating the War of the Beast as among the most crucial elements which prevented disaster, humanity's proclivity to choose comfort over security would be realized during the Age of Apostasy. Disbanding the Silent Sisterhood during the 36th millennium, though several enclaves of Null Maidens refused to abandon the Imperium, only those allied with the Custodian Guard of Terra would be protected from the frenzied masses. Vaunted for their service, fighting beside the Golden Host at the defense of the Lionsgate spaceport during the Time of Ending, with Primarch Roboute Guilliman's resurgence as the Lord Commander of the Imperium, the Null Maidens once more took the fight to the Emperor's enemies. Combating demon Primarchs, ancient traitor legions, and resurgent champions of the ruinous powers, now reinstated as part of the Imperial war effort by the Avenging Sun, the Era Indomitus hearkens the rejuvenation of the Silent Sisterhood's glories. Remembering well their pedigree during the battles of the Horus Heresy, and trust placed by the Master of Mankind in their creed, Guilliman's declaration of the Dispensatus Anathema rallied his allies made during the Battle of Luna to fight as part of his Indomitus crusade. The once disparate fragments of their order driven into hiding out of necessity, 3,000 Null Maidens gathered for the Vigil Indomitus as their newly established cadres embarked to join each battle group of the Avenging Sun's crusade. Having diverged significantly from their ideals of old, the Sisters now worshipped the Master of Mankind as a god, much to the surprise of Guilliman, their offshoots far from Terra's domains, fostering superstitious beliefs. Tasked with missions befitting their unique talents, while some cadres toiled to infiltrate the Eldar domains of the Webway to subvert their missions made to harm humanity, other pariahs target densely populated demon outposts, knowing their presence to diminish their enemies' powers. Their self-reliance allowing many of their number to pursue missions of their own devising, their independent fleets now roam the galaxy, having proven exceptionally gifted at parting warp storms by projecting null fields to breach the Great Rift. Such efforts capable of spreading escalating fear through their allies' ranks and overwhelming their astropathic choirs, the discipline required by the Sisters to stem eldritch horrors beyond the pale, nonetheless can also harm their peers. As part of the collective known as the Talons of the Emperor, the Sisters of Silence answer directly to the commands of the Emperor or Lord Regent of Terra, their ties to the Adeptus Astra Telepathica waning with their slow decline over the millennia. Punishing planetary governors who fail to produce adequate tithes or expunge psychic outbursts effectively, even the domains of the Ecclesiarchy and Priesthood of Mars are not beyond the judgment of these enforcers of the Emperor's will. Each candidate of this silent creed undergoing grueling physical regimes to bolster their strength beyond the skill of all conventional mortal warriors, while not benefiting from organ implantations. A Sister of Silence is more than a match against even a Space Marine. Though lacking the constitution or strength of an Astartes, their speed is surpassed only by the Golden Host, their equipment of the highest quality protecting them from small arms fire, whilst their pariah aura swiftly distracts and diminishes their opponent's focus. Swearing the vow of tranquility upon attaining full membership of their organization, no utterance shall pass from their lips, whether war cry or ranting boasts of honor and glory. Adding to their unnerving demeanor as they skulk the battlefield, these warriors forged from childhood must not allow even a grunt of pain, nor exertion to sully their oath. Secrecy upheld as their utmost responsibility, the unique gorget upon each panoply of the Sisterhood resembles a death head, not unlike to the chaplain order of the Adeptus Astartes. Communicating through sign language known as Fortmark, the vast majority of humanity, whether mortal or transhuman in nature, have no concept as to the gestures made by such warriors. Such ancient conventions, often requiring their companions of the Golden Host to accompany them to their tithes. Immensely complex in its implementation, such a quirk is not unintentional. For while a Master of Fortmark can swiftly interact with their peers, those who need not know their intent are prevented from unearthing the secrets of their order. Incorporating Adeptus Astartes battle sign, Void Sys, and Graph Binar military communication when needed, though the intricacies of Fortmark are eschewed, their more terse battle mark is more than capable of matching verbal orders in battle. Sending transmissions transcribed in a written form of Fortmark known as Orskade, this machine-legible, mechanical chatter of clicks to the untrained ear sounds like nothing more than unorganized words. Ostensibly a special forces unit of warriors, their skill wielding a blade is incredible to behold. Their nimble frames emphasizing great martial skill with minimal expense of energy or wasted motion. Biased towards close quarters combat by virtue of their need to combat psychic opponents who often strike from afar for lack of physical might, their tendency to be numerically outnumbered is countered by high-intensity rapid strikes. Immune to fear, conditioned as they are to combat threats spawned from the depths of hell itself. Though each sister understands concepts such as glory and honor, duty alone is reward enough for their service well made. Willing to conduct stealth operations, infiltration, and surveillance maneuvers to achieve success, none understand the value of sudden terrifying shock, alike to these talons of the Emperor. Allowing their allies to become collateral damage should they defy their mission parameters. Not even the Adeptus Astartes are above the authority of the Silent Sisterhood, for they are like to custodian guard, enact the will of the Emperor himself. Their Baroque armor and hairstyling retaining traces of humanity's barbaric past, the Null Maidens are set to cut their hair only should they have failed in their duties. The mere touch of a Silent Sister capable of inducing fits of vomiting to a mortal human, many a veteran opposed to their will has underestimated the unease felt when combating such Wrens in reality, once their restraint to contain their presence is released. Certain organizations, such as the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Malleus, the Grey Knights, unwilling to fight by the side of the Silent Sisterhood. Though they respect their abilities as warriors, few of their order can stand their presence and are content to watch their deeds from afar. A combination of both a clandestine and governing body of the Imperium, their enigmatic standing is all but impervious to most branches of the Adeptus Terra. Each fleet of their League of Black Ships, a ballpark for the size of their forces, it is believed as many as tens of thousands of Witch Seekers are active at present, mimicking the original three most powerful officers within their ranks. Knight Commander Janisha Kroll, the Soulless Queen, Mistress of the Black Ships Veronica Sulaf, and Nemesis Praxia, Eben Naroda, dividing their responsibilities to effectively partition the Divisio Investigatis into a fighting force capable of acting independently from all other branches of the Imperium's war machine. The largest subdivision of their order, known as the Chamber of Vigilance, each sister comprising such a creed facilitates their utmost important duty to garrison worlds and collect psychers from them for the Great Tithe. The Chamber Astra is responsible for the safekeeping of the Black Ships, the only portion of the Silent Sisterhood not to be scattered during the Age of the Imperium due to their need to rapidly protect their charges from raiders en masse. Members of the Chamber Oblivion, containing the most elite members of their order, such as Vigilators, the most promising of warriors from their ranks are chosen to earn their place as future Oblivion Knights and Knights Centura. Meanwhile, the Chamber of Judgment incorporates the silent judges of the Excruciatus, this far more dreaded creed executing dangerous witches throughout the expanse of humanity's domains. Unchanged in structure until the era Indomitus with the return of the Avenging Sun to the fold of the Imperium, another branch of the Sisterhood, known as the Vigil Indomitus, established satellite outposts throughout the Sol system in order to rally their forces into battle groups before attaching their might to the passing Crusade of Guilliman. Diverting portions of their might across the domains of the Imperium to establish new Vigil strongholds far from Terra's light, outposts such as those found within Darius Free, The Segretes Nebula or Ocean's Belt typically allow 1,000 Null Maidens to effectively run vigils to confront the threat of chaos. Each sister retaining the heraldry of their once isolated creeds, whether garbed in the bone white and red of the outer solar sector, blue and silver of Hrav Ulan, or gleaming gold of Terra. Every Carder of the Sisterhood uses symbology of predatory animals. Raptors, falcons, leopards and lynxes, acting as totemic symbols of their martial skill. Each Carder is equivalent to a Space Marine company in size, though it is a rare sight for any such band of warriors to fight with their assembled might. Combining several Carders on rare occasions to combat specific threats of the utmost importance. Examples such as the 5 Carders of the Triventine Vigil patrol the domains of the Salamander's homeworld of Nocturne to stem the high rate of psychic outbreaks across the sector's trade routes. Rediscovering long-displaced bands of their creed with each passing solar year, the Silent Sisterhood burgeons with the implementation of the Dispensatus Anathema, bolstered by the favor of both the Master of Mankind and Lord Commander Guilliman. To train a pariah in the form of a Silent Sister is a laborious task, for while aspirants are rare in the extreme, the process of training them whittles down their few numbers into 1 in a trillion individuals. Acolytes, not having earned their pedigree, are known as Sisters-in-Waiting, their slow progression conducting menial tasks throughout the first, second, and third stages of their development, eventually allowing them full membership as the most junior of the Sisterhood. Novice Sisters bypassing the trials of the Sisters-in-Waiting due to their innate talent or skill. Such promising sisters are tasked with studying witch lore and the practice of combat techniques. Beginning their journey as Witch Seekers, or Seekers for short, their Carders track down wanted criminals, dangerous app-humans, and other genetic abominations which spread mayhem throughout the Imperium. The Chamber of Judgment equivalent, known as a Questora, these warriors differ from their Seeker kin by virtue of their dedication to capture Psykers for the Great Tithe, armed with Charnable, Aldrathic, and snare weapons. Armed with flamers, and on rare occasions assault needlers, these warriors pacify rebellions, chaos uprisings, and prevent interference with Imperial tithes. Prosecutors, the next rank achieved by Null Maidens, considered to be of median tactical import. Most subjects of the Imperium shall never witness their deeds, due to their assignment as members of the League of Black Ships combat missions. Deployed to open engagement war zones rich with targets, the Terran pattern bolters of the Prosecutors roar their pledge of carnage, as each volley fired tears through mutant hordes of the armies of the primordial aggressors. Vigilators, the most senior of the standard classification of Null Maidens, each carries the iconic execution blades of their order into battle, as they engage witches and their thralls in close combat range. Training to deliver decapitation strikes to end such skirmishes quickly and with little fanfare. The speed of these combatants, even when clad in Vratin armor, is a sight to behold. Oblivion Knights bear the right to command Carders of the Sisterhood, within the Chamber of Oblivion as the most martially capable warriors of their order. The most powerful of such warriors, known as Knight Centura or Witch Seeker Pursuivant, these mistresses of command, due to their advanced age, are revered for their knowledge, skill for survival, and peerless expertise. Deployed sparingly in large numbers to engage events such as alpha-level Psyker engagements, Carders comprised entirely of the Oblivion Knights elite are known as the Raptora, their lineage tracing back to the honor guard of the Soulless Queen, the Raptor Guard. Armed with the finest weapons of the Sisterhood's arsenal and legends in their own right, the Raptora Carders fight the most devastating foes, alike to their forebears' deeds made against the Thousand Sons of Prospero. The Excruciatius, or Silent Judges, the most senior of the Chamber of Judgment, their duty to purge the wicked who conceal Psykers destined for the Great Tithes is fulfilled with Purging Flame. Tasked with judging whether a Psyker is too dangerous to transport to Holy Terra, these warriors clad in thick red leather coats and mechanical ruby red eyes are said to be promoted upon the 100th witch slain by their hand. Knights Vestal are the most senior of the Chamber of Vigilance, though uniquely, these exemplars can be dispatched to aid myriad subdivisions of the Sisterhood. The equivalent of an apothecary for the Null Maidens' battle lines, these combat medics bear the grim responsibility of discerning whether to heal or grant the Emperor's mercy to their injured kin. Equipped with Narfesium, alike to their Space Marine counterparts, though Silent Sisters bear no progenoid glands to harvest, the diagnostic tools, medical stimulants, and reductor spike allow for quick administration of medicine or painless death. The Nemesis Praxia, responsible for safeguarding the law of the Sisterhood's deeds, as well as Estate Temporal. This High Guardian of the Divisio's trifecta leadership also oversee the training of acolytes to burgeon new generations of Null Maidens. The Mistress of the Black Ships, responsible for orchestrating the great ties to the Master of Mankind, as Grand Admiral of the League of Black Ships Fleet. Such a commander is a veteran of countless void wars and voyages through the most perilous sectors of space. Last of the leadership of the Sisterhood is the Knight Commander, also known as a Sister Commander or Vigil Commander. A combat veteran of countless ground wars, with authority to command every cadre of the Null Maidens as she sees fit. Other specialist ranks and units also exist within the Silent Sisterhood for bespoke tactical engagements, such as the oft-forgotten Aquila Astra, who command the aircraft of the Sisterhood. Pursuer cadres tame cyberbeasts to aid their hunt for rogue psychers, flushing such renegades from hiding or pursuing them through tight confines too small for a sister's form to accommodate. Firebrand cadres see to the purge of designated hovels of abhumans, mutants and criminals within the heart of high sprawls. Their flame is denying fleeing souls a chance to escape, as their highly coordinated infernos swallow all within their Promethean embrace. Subjugator cadres ride atop Erinny's pattern jet bikes to better scout far-ranging territories and harass individuals ahead of their advancing lines of more heavily armed sisters. Their lightweight, anti-gravitic vehicles, the envy of many an Imperial warrior who witnesses their snare cannons, Hadraphic destructors, or needle cannons' capabilities to capture or destroy their charges. Expurgator cadres containing the spread of information regarding their Sisterhood's activities. To maintain their enigmatic status as among the Imperium's most clandestine orders, great pains are made to burn witnesses with heavy weapons fire. Sanctioner cadres of the Chamber Vigilance identify demagogues, warlords and martyrs, espousing the tenets of the ruinous powers. Their efforts preventing outbursts of calamitous damage to Imperial lives using stealth operations gear, war-spec sensors, and targeted strikes of their long-range Nemesis pattern bolters. Elite Eradicator cadres of the Chamber of Vigilance aiding Imperial allies in their combat against armies in thrall to powerful psychers. Their assignment to military maneuvers, armed with an array of weaponry, allows them to cut through the heart of enemy lines before severing the psychers' connection to their forces. Finally, Silent Fury cadres of the Chamber of Judgment also pilot Erinny's pattern jet bikes to cover vast swathes of territory, while allied heavy armor follows their lead. The Silent Furies accompanying Subjugator cadres to capture high-value targets or conduct hit-and-run tactics. Immune to psychic manipulations in their entirety, these beings who bear no presence in the warp cause discomfort and pain to all in their presence, often killed at birth due to the intense unease felt by populations who witness these blanks in reality. No matter one's will, every subject of the Imperium beholds such beings with disgust, these soulless outcasts unknowingly plucking at the fundamental instincts of human life, escalating tensions between those that surround them as anathema to existence itself. Those that bear the most striking presence of such phenomena are inducted into the Silent Sisterhood, their intense aura not only affecting humans, but even Xenos, such as the Eldar and Greenskins. The more powerful the Psyker, the more intense the emotion felt, for it is quite possibly the worst sensation an Eldari can feel, to be tormented by a Null Maiden's presence as they experience horrors of an existential scale. Uncorruptible by the thralls of chaos, Farseers of the Eldar, or any witch kindred of the warp, it is the greatest shame that such useful scars in reality are nonetheless culled en masse by ignorant bystanders. Deflecting walls of warp flame, time manipulation, or atomizing lightning, even the most powerful librarian falters in single combat with such warriors. The visceral antithesis felt by such psychers, compounding their focus in duels as they desperately struggle to contain bile in their guts or simply collapse as their muscles surrender. Those trained in the arts of the Sisterhood, capable of harnessing their pariah gene to actively disrupt enemy combatants, tomes such as the Psychana Occultis and voiceless judgments of Melena Verdhand, housed within the archives of the Somnus Citadel of Luna, bolster their knowledge of how to combat witches. Favoring flamers, bolters, and power swords as standard, the Null Maidens attack their enemies in waves, led by their prosecutor squads, often using Vratine grenade launchers to disperse enemy groups. Raining hails of bolter fire upon their foes as their witch-seeker kin drive their foes from cover. All who escape the wrath of their ranged armaments fall to the execution blades of their vigilators. Carrying psych-out grenades, which contain the cremated ashes of martyred sisters, The remains of their fallen retain traces of their pariah essence, and cause those caught in their blast radius to suffer sudden, intense mental trauma. The craftsmanship of their arsenal, second only to the Adeptus Custodes in quality. Though their bolters bear similarity to Terran patterns used by the Adeptus Astartes, these Vratine and Nemesis variants, modified in scale for mortal hands, are regardless not diminished in their firepower capabilities. Execution blades, synonymous with their creed as the symbol of the Emperor's commandments to purge the heretic. These exquisitely forged, two-handed power swords, made to the standards of the ancient Charnable sabers, favored by the Emperor's children of yore, are edged with diamond-hard silica glass. Sharper than even the most venerated weapons of most Space Marine armories, their edge parts foes from their limbs and heads from their necks as easily as a knife through silk. Their Vratine armor, donned upon completion of a Sister Aspirant's vow of tranquility, this armor literally translated as the Armor of the Oath, incorporates selenite voidmail, tailored specifically to its wearer to diminish loss of maneuverability, and can deflect even energy weapons fire with ease. Garbed in void-sheen cloaks, made from micro-vitreous mesh, which absorbs kinetic energy, whether from melee or ranged weapons, senior commanders wear enhanced designs which incorporate refractor generators into their design. The leaders of the Excruciatius Cadres, clad in bloody red raiment, known as Spectra vestments. Such silent judges shift the hue of their panoplies using field generators to merge into their environments, or surround their position with impenetrable, obscuring darkness. Carrying instruments of torment on their persons, the Excruciatius Cadre fire neurodisruption barbs at dangerous targets to slowly dull their senses through poison. The Proteus Neurolash flails, forged during the Age of Strife, used to subdue multiple opponents at once. Their neural prongs emit shock fields which overload their target's nervous systems, allowing for easy capture or dispatch. Supported by Karan patterned Acquisitor grav tanks, these unique machines of war, used exclusively by the Sisterhood, quietly approach enemy position using Spectro distort fields before unleashing its devastating heavy stubber and missile payloads. Their Alchem Needlers aiding in the capture of Psykers without harming their quarry. Their stocks of ever more potent anesthetics can sunder even the most abhorrent beasts of burden for study. Their League of Black ships, incorporating vessels as small as cruisers to as large as battlecruisers, each is heavily armed to defend from pirates or other, more malevolent foes. Unnoticed by Vox Signal nor Auspex scanners, though none can ascertain the provenance of how the Sisterhood obtained such potent technologies, it is doubtless thanks to the Emperor's favor that hundreds of such vessels scour the stars to obtain morsels for the Golden Throne. Highly automated to reduce the need for mortal crew, the risk of madness imposed by close proximity to the Sisterhood precludes all but the most mentally stable and reliable staff. The largest void craft of the fleet, carrying exterminators payloads, typically of the cyclonic torpedo variant. A single rogue psyker, should they be left unchecked, can doom an entire planet to damnation, and thus may only be stemmed with such weapons of annihilation. Among their assembled fleet, the Era Gloris stands as its flagship. Its tenure made during the earliest years of the Great Crusade, present during many of its greatest battles, and even escorting the Imperial Fist Fortress Monastery to the Somnium Citadel as it harbored survivors of the Istvan Free atrocity. For while the scars of heresy remain clear for all to see, to this day, the pale scourge of Luna continue to skulk the shadows in the defense of the Imperium. The legacy of these jailers and huntswomen, all the more crucial as the noose of the Cicatrix Maledictum tightens. As a child on Gehenna, I remember the stories of the White Maidens, terrifying ghosts that would come in the night to steal away the Witchborn and children who had done terrible wrongs. It was said that they could find the wicked no matter how deep in the hive they sank, or to what forgotten spire they climbed. As I grew, I came to believe such things were no mere superstition. But now that I am an officer of the Great Crusade, bloodied upon the battlefields of a score of worlds, I have come to find that my childhood fears were true and quite valid. We do not determine the guilty. We do not decide the punishment. We are merely the cold instruments of the Emperor's vengeance. There is no form of death unknown to us. There is no form of terror beyond our means. There is no enemy outside our reach. We are the blade that hovers over the throat of the traitor. We are the bullet that awaits the heretic's skull. We are the poison in the throat of the alien. The Imperium of Man is a vast empire spanning the length and breadth of the galaxy. Its dominion encompassing millions of worlds, inhabiting untold trillions of citizens. In order for the great machines of bureaucracy to function, each of its myriad organizations must not only decree their laws and tithes, but also enforce them. For today, we shall elucidate the clandestine liquidators of the Adeptus Administratum, tasked with expunging those who are deemed a threat to its function. The sharp knives of the Emperor, the Officio Assassinorum. During the era of the Great Crusade, the Master of Mankind required every conceivable means to achieve his vision of a unified empire of humanity. Bringing order to the throne world of Terra by use of his golden host and the ill-fated Thunder Warriors. With such brute's usefulness at an end, a new breed of warriors were created. The Legiones Astartes, though inferior in stature to the Thunder Legion, proved unified in purpose. Their loyalty to the Emperor proven through their purge of their forebears, alongside the Custodian Guard. Waging war across the stars, hundreds of thousands of the Angels of Death brought worlds into compliance, reclaiming disparate fiefdoms to be brought into the fold of the burgeoning Imperium. The fabled sons of the Emperor with time were reunited with their armies of gene sons, assuming command of each legion until the galaxy at large submit to their blades and bolters. Yet for all the vaunted deeds of the Legiones Astartes, their methods were far from subtle, and even the methods of the 19th and 20th Legions were best utilized in campaigns requiring the submission of civilizations, rather than singular souls. The Imperium required a force to maintain the Emperor's will within the worlds already claimed in his name, and no manner of ceramite-clad Goliath could hope to master the true arts of secrecy and espionage. Loyal administrators and operatives, proven in the arts of furtiveness, worked in secret to help facilitate their new overlord's grand vision. Accomplishing their missions with no thought for glory nor praise, the knives of the Emperor executed his will, unseen from even his sight, as the warriors of the Great Crusade continued to earn glory for the Imperium. Ensuring that tithes promised to the Imperial war machine continued, and purging dissident voices seeking to usurp the Master of Mankind's vision, each planetary governor entrusted with rulership of their fiefdom quickly learned not to turn from the Emperor's light. As centuries passed, and the Imperium continued to swell, the ranks of the veteran assassins began to dwindle. Their effectiveness dulled with time, and bodies slowing. Realizing the need to impart their skills to new generations of cutthroats, the enigmatic killers met with the Emperor and revealed their efforts made in his name. Admitting the grim necessity of such slaughterers, the Master of Mankind showed gratitude and sanction for their actions, regardless of their methods. Outlining the foundations of an organization specializing in silencing upstart threats to his regime, various clades were constructed and tasked with raising new generations of assassins. Inducting the most promising orphaned youths proven to show talent in rare acts of survival, the newly established Officio Assassinorum sired 6 clades specializing in various methods of murder. Honing their specialist methods of killing, the Calidus, Venenum, Culexus, Vindicare, Eversor, and Varnus clades drafted curriculums and training regimens to craft future generations of assassins. New methods in the arts of blades, poison, rifles, and garrots were developed as Director Primuses oversaw the expanse and results of their assigned clades. Under the jurisdiction of the Regent of Terra, Malcador the Sigillite, every clade of the Officio Assassinorum served the first Grand Master of Assassins by order of the Emperor. Meticulously assigning each clade to enact missions of censure, elimination, and compliance throughout the worlds of the Imperium. So effective were their actions that none beyond the bounds of their organization ever knew of the existence nor evidence of their order. Yet with the dawn of the rebellion of the War Master of Chaos, Horus Lupercal, the Officio Assassinorum would be tasked with a new mission of paramount import. Learning of the duplicity of the Lupercal during the early years of the 31st millennium, as the traitor rebellion turned the worlds of Prospero and Istvan Free into barren wastelands, a swift means to decapitate this looming beast's head was required. The Legiones Astartes were strewn far and wide across the stars, and any maneuvers conducted by such direct assembled military might would quickly be quelled before their blades came close to cutting the thread of the War Master. Each clade dispatched assassins independently to slay the Primarch of the 16th Legion, yet each and every one failed in their attempt. Seeking an opportunity to bring the full might of the Assassinorum to bear, the Sigillite, under the advisements of the Captain General of the Legio Custodes, Constantin Valdor, assembled the first execution force of its kind. Combining their disparate methods of extermination, the assassins known as Coin, Iota, Fontariel, Jenica Solm, Aristide Kell, and the Garantine undertook their monumental task. Never before had precedent been set for a force of this otherwise overwhelming scale of violence, for to deploy a singular assassin was a decision not made lightly by the Imperium or the Emperor. Yet such was the threat posed by the War Master of Chaos, that any means necessary would be approved in order to quell his rebellion before more death and destruction could be wrought. The Imperial Execution Force was sanctioned to ignore their clade's preconceived moral outlines and strictures, for this mission was of too great import to be derailed. Foreseeing the impending threat to his well-laid plans, the first chaplain of the Word-Bearers, Erebus, initiated his own scheme to destroy the execution force. Having boarded a Silent Sisterhood voidcraft harboring the Black Pariah experiment created by the Culexus clade 2 years prior, the assassin codenamed Spear proved to be a fitting means to foil the Sigillites' plans. The coordinates of the vessel destined for the heart of a nearby sun in order to safely eliminate the crazed and unstable Black Pariah. The Hand of Fate conducted chaos rituals upon his captured subject and bonded a demon of the warp to its form. Mutating into a being capable of reflecting psychic powers once obtaining a sample of his opponent's blood, the corrupted Spear served his new master up to the events of the Istvan Free atrocity, and was tasked with traversing to the world of Dagonet. Seeking a document sent to its surface containing a trace of the Master of Mankind's own blood, should the Spear obtain such a sample, it could prove capable of slaying the Emperor by using his own psychic might against him. Following the Lunar Wolves' compliance of the world in years prior, Dagonet had ever since revered the Lupercal for his emancipation of their people from tyranny, and with word reaching them of the War Master's betrayal, its people stood in opposition to the Imperium. Learning that Horus intended to revisit Dagonet in order to bolster their allegiance to his cause and form a foothold within the Tabian Star sector, the execution force awaited his arrival. Confronted by the Black Pariah, the assassin Iota drove back the creature before her blood fueled its unnatural powers as Solm incurred a mortal wound. Following the death of Iota by Spear, the remaining assassins witnessed the death of Solm as she beseeched her brother, Aristide Kell, to eliminate the Black Pariah. Their mission severely exacerbated by the thrall of Erebus, the execution force continued their mission to kill the War Master as the last remnants of loyalist defiance on the planet perished. Descending from the heavens, a warrior clad in the mantle of the War Master strode onto the surface of Dagonet, and once removing his helmet was struck in the throat by a shot of Aristide Kell's rifle. In truth, the body of the sons of Horus' 13th captain, Luke Cedere, Horus's caution had proven justified as the severed head of the fallen captain fell to the ground. Retreating from the erupting chaos as the sons of Horus cut down the people of Dagonet, the Black Pariah confronted the execution force and slew all with exception to Aristide. Avenging the death of his sister, Kell departed Dagonet and attempted once more to slay the War Master. Infiltrating Horus's flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, Aristide ultimately failed to assassinate the Primarch and defected to serve the traitor war effort. The first execution force had proven calamitous, and though further attempts were made to assassinate the War Master, none bore fruit. Yet despite the failure of its primary objective, the execution force had succeeded in eliminating the Black Pariah, which left unchecked could have posed a serious threat to the Emperor. With time, the Traitor Rebellion faltered, and the War Master of Chaos fell during the fatal last battle of the Siege of Terra, and in these dark days to follow, the duty of the Officio Assassinorum to root out heresy and upstart incursions of chaos, xenos, and heretical reprisal were needed more than ever. Following the era of the Horus Heresy, the Knives of the Emperor began to earn a sinister and often marred reputation. The assassins of the Kalidas were revered for the successful assassination of the traitor Primarch, Konrad Curze, yet during the Age of Apostasy, a renegade of their order had attempted to slay the reigning Grand Master of Assassins, as the tyranny of High Lord Goj Vandire tore the Imperium apart. Atrocities took place within the Imperial Palace, and none could deny that these unstable killers, though invaluable to the Imperium, had caused much needless suffering. Fragmented into now temples of each clade to prevent their wholesale corruption by xenos, demonic, or heretical influence, the Officio Assassinorum spread its smaller divisions far and wide across the stars. Secretly establishing a new contingent within the Emperor's Holy Inquisition, the Ordo Sicarius, these inquisitors would monitor the Assassinorum for signs of corruption. Limiting the dispatch of assassins to require the approval of 2/3 of the Senatorum Imperialis of the High Lords of Terra, all actions of any active assassin must be relayed to an assigned inquisitor in order to monitor and inspect their progress. Every assassin, with exception given to Eversors, must undergo routine psycho-indoctrination to maintain their loyalty to the Imperium's ideals, and final approval to return to active duty must be screened by the Ordo Sicarius. Wielded by the High Lords of Terra in order to pacify both political and military threats across the galaxy, many a heretical prophet, false king, or traitor warlord has been quelled by order of the rulers of the Throne World. Relentless in pursuit of their targets, no assassin is permitted to return to their temple of origin without proof of the death of their target. The tally of worlds embroiled in civil war far from the Emperor's light is vast, and it is the duty of the Assassinorum to behead every despot and tyrant, hungrily gorging on the middling power they have usurped from the ruler of humanity. No longer a mystery to the wider Imperium, woe betides any planetary governor or greedy bureaucrat foolish enough to refuse to pay tithes to the Imperium, for the promise of reprisal at the hands of the Emperor's knives is swift and bloody. No matter a wayward subject status, whether they be a monarchic noble, naval admiral, militarum general, or even Space Marine chapter master, the Assassinorum does not discriminate in its application of force should their targets prove to defy the Emperor's will. Armed with exotic and strange weaponry, ranging from simple garrots and knives to phase swords and neural shredders, even an unarmed member of the Assassinorum has plentiful methods available to eliminate their targets. Debriefed to an exhaustive degree once returned from a successful mission, every assassin is scrutinized in their methods used and flaws in their application before being dispatched once more to hunt a target of the Imperium. Overwhelmingly drawn from orphan stock, every assassin eschews their former identity in order to better serve their temple. Trained within Schola Progenium alongside future commissars, Astra Militarum generals, Sisters of Battle, and judges of the Adeptus Arbites, only the most violent and menacing candidates are mysteriously spirited from the ranks of their peers. Tested to survive acts of starvation, unarmed brawls, and immersion into low-light conditions when en route to Holy Terra for further training, it is typical for only 1/10 of such aspirants to survive their journey, if any. Assigned to subterranean temples and taught the ways of their respective assassination styles for a solar decade, it is a mystery to all what specific methods are used to forge such killers. The abbots of the Schola Progenium, comparable to kindly pacifists in contrast to the instructors of the temples. Each inductee must endure immense pain, physical trials, and tests of mental acuity, with little rest nor relent. Adapting to countless injections of steroids and medical concoctions, it is no exaggeration to state that each assassin is transformed into something that cannot be described as human. Becoming proficient not just in the arts of murder, but also navigation, piloting, imperial history, human and Xenos biology, language dialects, maintenance of armaments, and even appeasement practices of the machine spirits of their equipment. Each assassin must become totally self-reliant, no matter the trials they face. Such is the overload of information and learning required that many aspirants who survive even the physical trials to become an assassin cannot endure such onslaughts of data. Surgically grafted with augmentative brain nodes, submuscular armor, and an array of integrated stimulant ports, these baleful killers are crafted to achieve superhuman feats of endurance, agility, and savagery. Divided into various temples in order to hone their specialized methods of death dealing, 6 major temples preside over the majority of their organization. The Kalidas Temple practices the arts of subterfuge and deception, mastering cunning tactics which transform their very flesh in order to hunt down their targets. Dispatched to conduct missions which may upset the fragile bureaucracy of the Imperium, the mark of a veteran Kalidas assassin is their ability to slay their targets, leaving no trace of their presence. Ever patient in their planning and execution of their task, some assassination attempts take years to accomplish as they weave themselves into false identities to better understand the routines and habits of their targets. Wielding Catan phase swords capable of slicing through the toughest of armor, few defenses can prevent these punch daggers when combined with an array of poison throwing knives and neural shredders, and several assassins practice the ritual of leaving death cards on the bodies of their slain, which when touched produce a hololithic image of their kill's last moment of life. Dosed with potent polymorphic drugs, enabling their body's chameleonic properties, none know the extent of Kalidas assassins currently masquerading in places of powerful Imperium or even Xenos officials. The assassins of the Culexus Temple strike fear into the hearts of mortals by virtue of their sinister reputation and visage. Skull-helmed creations, regarded by the Eldari race as evil incarnate, these pariahs are feared even by their peers within the Officio Assassinorum. Their mere presence driving many souls to madness. Psychically powerful beings are enfeebled when in close proximity to these malevolent and soulless entities. The void of their existence, emphasized through their cold, depthless eyes, paranoia and anxiety are the tools of the Culexus trade. Causing panic attacks, seizures, and waves of dread while stalking through the shadows, even a noble warrior of any creed can be brought low by these morbid killers. Harnessing their pariah essence by use of their temple's training, none among the Assassinorum are more adept at combating heretical, demonic, and Eldari foes. The Vindicare Temple forged snipers of peerless skill and patience, resulting in operatives capable of incredible feats of marksmanship. Championing clean kills achieved with perfect application of force, adepts of the temple establish firing positions and remain in a state of metabolic-induced near hibernation states until the optimal time to strike presents itself. Able to slow their heart rate to a single beat per minute, such assassins are instantly roused by subliminal mental triggers should their target be observed. Motionless for as long as solar weeks on end, these immensely patient killers can sow pandemonium with but a single shot before returning to their temple for their next assignment. Assassins of the Eversor Temple are vicious beyond measure and specialize in terror tactics. Less comparable to a scalpel's blade, but rather a butcher's machete, these hideous abominations serve as a necessary tool of war and are the only temple not permitted to be stationed on Holy Terra. Stored within cryostasis crypts, most deployed by their single-use drop pods are rarely expected to return from their assignment alive. hurled into the heart of enemy positions which require nothing less than a massacre. Such disposable killers unleash rampages of obscene violence in the midst of the thickest of fighting. Superhuman killing machines, these assassins are pumped with an array of chemicals and fitted with cybernetic implants suited to exploiting their already volatile aggression. Their taloned claws rending their enemies into ribbons. Should an Eversor eventually be felled, the mixtures of toxins within their bodies react to the point of detonating, allowing for a final act of devastation to mark the end of their tormented existence. The Adamus Temple acts as the oldest branch of the Assassinorum, specializing in mastering swordsmanship drawn from the traditions of Old Earth, though no records can confirm if this clandestine temple remains active during the era Indomitus. The Venenum Temple exclusively poison their enemies, their time-delayed composites allowing for their operatives to escape before their target has succumbed to their deadly toxins. Among the minor temples, the Varnus Temple gathers intelligence for the Officio Assassinorum and steers the political games of the Imperium to their organization's favor, using InfoSight operatives alike to human computing engines. Orchestrating infighting within the ranks of their target's own forces, these enigmatic manipulators have left the barest scraps of their presence throughout the millennia. The renegade Mayorus Temple have been annexed from the Officio Assassinorum since the early days of the 40th millennium due to their development of mutated human Eldar hybrids. Said to have incorporated Tyranid genetic materials into their subjects in order to create murderous abominations, the deranged rogue Mayorus assassin, Legion Strass, for attempting to topple the Imperium, ensured the censure of their entire temple. Lastly, there are whispers of an elusive branch of the Assassinorum, known as the Temple Secretum, tasked with guarding the Imperium's most ruinous mysteries, and shall use any and all means to eradicate those who attempt to uncover them. An assassin's body is his most powerful weapon. He can smash through steel with his hands and feet. He can climb sheer surfaces, leap gaping chasms, run as fast as the wind, and endure hardships that would kill a lesser man. None can withstand pain or hurt like an assassin. He can place his hand in boiling lava without flinching. He can endure flame or cutting blade. Even mortal wounds will not blunt his purpose. He works silently and without thanks, for he is the bloody-handed and secret savior of the Imperium. This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. The right, left, and unseen hand of the Emperor excise threats across the galaxy to which even the Adeptus Astartes cannot remove. Chosen from a select few of both noble and tragic circumstance, all are made equal within their ranks as their myriad methods and specializations fulfill the will of the Master of Mankind. It is said that comparison is the thief of joy, for even among the elite of any field, it is easy to compare one's traits to your compatriots to find yourself wanting. Should your efforts be fulfilled, it can be worthwhile to see where improvements can be made, yet be aware of the depths to which a person can fall, stewing in jealousy and bitterness. For your talents are unique, and it is your duty alone to find the perfect use to apply them for your own benefit.